unfortunately, the biggest barrier that a lot of my patients have with like eating the way they would like to is access. And so if they're like, I'm just eating ramen and Doritos because that's what's at the Quick Trip or that's what I can afford, then I'm probably not going to talk to them about like whole grains and apples. I'm going to be just like, yo, can you come back tomorrow and like take home some groceries? Like we have some for you.
How to be patient.
Welcome back, guys. Another episode, another day. Preston, how are you feeling for this one? Because I'm coming in a little bit sick.
Yeah, I'm feeling good. Margaret's been sick all week. I did my first improv class last week, so I'm rearing and ready to go because I did not do much research for this, so it will all be improv on my end.
Hey, we love it. Well, we have a very special guest with us today, and today we're going to be talking about feeding yourself and eating as self-care, not from the necessarily nutritional psychiatry, what is the best thing to prevent these things, but feeding and eating when you are struggling with symptoms of mental health concerns or overwhelm or stress or grief. And for that, we have Dr. Brooke Resch, who is an outpatient psychiatrist working in the Midwest, which, as our listeners know, I'm from the Midwest, so I love the Midwest, who is also on TikTok as Dr. Brooke on there. Is that correct?
Yeah, Cook with Dr. Brooke.
Cook with Dr. Brooke, which is a great name. I would, if people aren't familiar with your work on TikTok, could you describe a little bit about what you do on there? Because I think your channel is like a very unique resource.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so it's Cook with Dr. Brooke. It's TikTok and Instagram. It's been growing a little bit over there lately too. And it's the connection between food and mood, that overlap in the Venn diagram between what we eat and how our brain and how our mental health is doing. So it is a bit of that nutritional psychiatry content, like what are the nuts and bolts, the right nutrients to be getting in your body, which you guys have, covered on this podcast before, but it's also about the rest of food, right? Like the shame and baggage that comes with food, the socialization that comes with eating a meal, the behavioral activation and the meditation that comes with being in the kitchen. So there's a lot of different ways that what we eat and how we eat every day kind of feeds us. And there's both like the biological, brick and mortar ways that it feeds us, and also the rest of the way that it feeds us. So we mostly stay in the middle of that Venn diagram. I like to say sometimes we get into other mental health topics because I'm a psychiatrist and I'm interested in mental health. Sometimes we just get into other, like, here's a cool recipe that may or may not have anything to do really with mental health. So we move around a little bit, but I try to, especially focus on that overlap.
And then in your clinical work, do you feel like you also are specialized in the nutritional psychiatry world, or do you feel like you happen to bring it up or really talk a lot about it with your patients?
Yes and no, as far as like a specialty and a big part of my practice. So I work, in a big healthcare system where I have pretty short appointments with patients. And so I kind of see my role as like planting the seed a lot of the time, as, asking my patients about what they're eating or what their diet looks like. Or sometimes they bring it up, gosh, doc, I really need to lose weight. And then that's, oh, well, you're focusing on eating changes and how that's going to affect your waistline. Did you know that that also like affects your brain? So more of like planting the seed and pointing them towards other resources. Sometimes that's my own TikTok or books or cookbooks that I like, or even referring to like a registered dietitian that's also in the healthcare system. So I kind of see myself as like a starting point, because we have a lot else to cover in psychiatry visits.
Yeah. Well, one thing that we always do when we have a guest on the podcast is we start with kind of an icebreaker that all three of us answer. And the question today is, so in these short visits, if you had more time with your patients, like let's say you have 5 minutes somehow protected that you were going to talk to them about food, what are the things that you feel like come up the most for patients you see in your psychiatry clinic that you wish you had those extra 5 or 10 minutes to like really problem solve with them?
Oh boy.
But we can give our ideas as well. So I'm putting you on the spot. Preston, do you want to go or should I go first?
Yeah, I was just picturing this as an icebreaker at like a psychiatry convention or something, like all sitting around the room.
Yeah, everybody.
All right, guys. Yeah, whenever I talk about food with my patients, I start with appetite, I guess, as we're kind of like doing our review of systems or kind of like you going through the CG caps things that can affect people's depression or their anxiety. And usually I start with, like, do you feel like eating? And then I kind of go into like, what does a day of eating look like for you? And that's when I wish I had more time with them, because when people try to reflect on an average day of eating, I think they often try to go to their most ideal day of eating. And then, or they'll kind of go to the complete opposite and say like, I eat like shit. And to dig into like what that question means takes a lot of time. So I'd like to learn more about like what eating like crap is like for people. And I do think that if you have 5 minutes or apply 5 minutes well, you can get to a decent amount of places. So a lot of people just eat the same things every day. I mean, I'm no exception of that. I feel like I can just hit copy paste on my HEB grocery order each week, and it's usually the same things. So I guess that would be what I would be wishing I had more time to dive into. And maybe I'm just saying that I wish, and I really do have that time. And I'm just not prioritizing as much as I should.
I feel like for me, I mean, outside of, I see a lot of eating disorder patients, so I'm actually going to sidestep that for this episode. See the eating disorder episodes, guys, if you want that. But I'm in child fellowship now, and I see a lot of kids with different neurodevelopmental things or ADHD, where there's this like the like high, like the very satiating, hyper processed, I don't really believe in that term, but like very processed foods that it's like very palatable. So like getting kids at the right developmental stage who also have psychiatric illness to get a modicum of nutrition, and the battles they get in with their parents. And then also kids with like ARFID or other sensory things that don't just end in childhood. And I feel like end up being a source sometimes of shame for some of like adult patients, or they just feel really limited and stuck with food. So I feel like those are a couple I see and saw more with my like anxiety patients too when I was working with adults.
I was thinking like, because sometimes I do have 5 minutes. Oh, the next person just canceled. And then what do I say? And like I said, I'm in a big healthcare system, and we actually do have a food bank in our facility a couple of times a month. And so just logistically, and unfortunately, the biggest barrier that a lot of my patients have with like eating the way they would like to is access. And so if they're like, I'm just eating ramen and Doritos because that's what's at the Quick Trip or that's what I can afford, then I'm probably not going to talk to them about like whole grains and apples. I'm going to be just like, yo, can you come back tomorrow and like take home some groceries? Like we have some for you. So just as far as like getting food into your body, that's square one. And I'm not going to pick nits about what the minutia of your diet looks like at that point. So if I just have 5 minutes, it's making sure there's access. And if they can't come into us, what other resources are there in the community? If I get another 5 minutes and I get to talk about like the nutrition end, is I'm usually saying Mediterranean diet. Have you heard of the Mediterranean diet? No, not Mediterranean food, Mediterranean diet. Go Google it and we'll talk about it more the next time you see me. So again, it is like kind of that planting the seed. And that is really, that's a diet that talks about what you should be adding to your diet. It's not about what you should be eliminating or can't eat. Nothing's off limits in the Mediterranean diet. And I feel like that's more approachable for a lot of people too, because I'm not telling them to stop anything or I'm not shaming them for anything on their menu.
You should have those like grocery store samplers. If you go through like Costco and they got like the little cart with like chips to dip or something, it's like that, but for Mediterranean diet foods. And you're like, yeah, on the way out of the clinic, just go ahead, feel free to grab some feta cheese and a pita chip.
I got a dense bean
there's a
salad.
little olive oil there too. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Just a little sampler, just a taste.
Something to bring them coming back. Famously well-funded psychiatry clinics. Yeah, so I feel like we're all talking about like very different issues that people can have with food, and we're not touching on many of them that do also exist, that we see and ideally would get to talk to our patients more about. One of the reasons we wanted to have you on was after we did the episode with Dr. Drew Ramsey on nutritional psychiatry, I got a couple DMs that were like, can you guys not talk about like the facts about nutrition and what the studies are, but like, how do I feed myself when I'm depressed? How do I like work with the behavioral activation, or like my anxiety means I'm never hungry and I have IBS and really bad OCD. And so certainly, first of all, scope of practice, we're not dietitians or GI doctors, but I do think that that's not an uncommon issue for people to have. And so what we're going to spend the episode doing is kind of going through depression, anxiety spectrum disorders, and ADHD, and a little bit on sensory stuff within autism. But the first three are the main ones, and talk a little bit about issues that come up when those symptoms are flaring and how we can help our patients, or for listeners, how they can help themselves. And we might give a little lip service, like a couple nutrients that you think are key in those situations.
Sure.
But I know a lot of it is cross-diagnostic. So we will get into that right after this break. All right, Preston, I'm going to let you choose. Do you want to start with depression, ADHD, or anxiety for talking about food and its relationship with those illnesses?
I think I want to start with ADHD because I can picture the like hyperpalatal, satiating foods, and also like the difficulty controlling yourself from eating. I think that's interesting, interesting and actionable.
Yeah. Okay. So, Dr. Resch, what do you think when you think of ADHD and how that might impact someone's relationship with being able to eat, feed themselves? And here's the point where we also plug one or two nutrients that are helpful for ADHD people.
Right. Yeah. Good question. And it's okay if you don't have them in front of you, but did you get any DMs specifically from folks like about asking about ADHD and kind of what they were interested in hearing about?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things I see a lot of people talk about with ADHD, I don't remember if a DM said this, but one of them that I've seen is like the executive dysfunction, and that feeding is actually a quite complex thing to do if you're not even getting, like, assuming that you have access to like Uber Eats or something, but then your finances become tight. So I think that's a big part of it, is like, how do I feed myself somewhat well when with significant ADHD, I struggle with putting meals together,
Right.
or doing all these complex tasks.
Yeah. So it's a mixture of both that, like, the planning that goes into meal planning, into meal preparation, into shopping and sourcing and all of that. And also, like, people with ADHD are often taking stimulants to manage their symptoms, and stimulants kind of wreck your appetite a lot of the time. And so one thing we would talk about a lot in ADHD clinic when I rotated there in residency was really planning meals and not listening to your body, which is, the advice that you hear all the time is like, listen to your body, listen to your internal cues. But if you are on a medication that actively suppresses your appetite, is saying, okay, it's 10 o'clock, and at 10 o'clock, I have my apple and peanut butter every day. And I'm not going to wait for myself to get hungry because I know that there's something else getting in the way of that. And I know that if I skip my apple and wait to get hungry, I'm going to be feeling worse later. So making it almost more of a chore than a to-do list rather than like a biologic process, right? I get up and I brush my teeth, I brush my hair, I eat my breakfast. That's part of the routine, part of the schedule, whether or not I feel hungry or ready for it. And then the opposite end of that advice is to make things fun, so make it a routine or make it fun. Because with ADHD and needing kind of novelty and reward, how can you take out pizza and make it kind of healthy and kind of fun? I love to put like balsamic glaze on my pizza, and I think of it like syrup, or, when I'm putting on my red pepper flakes, it's like sprinkles. And those are little ways to kind of like teach myself that this is like a fun, rewarding activity and not just a frozen pizza. And I might sneak some vegetables on the frozen pizza too, because I know that they're good for me. But then I do it in a way that's manageable, that's reproducible, that's novel and fun.
Yeah, because so for like tapping into both the routine, like simple routines that people with ADHD, they're not overly complex or perfect, but they can do, and then tapping into the part that is making it more different or interesting each time, so it doesn't entirely get slotted into this kind of chore category that can be difficult to maintain with people with ADHD.
I mean, the word I see online a lot is like, this is my new hyperfixation breakfast, or this is my hyperfixation dinner, right?
Yeah.
And that's basically like this thing that I really like that I've now figured out how to make efficiently and I have on repeat. Great. If that's working for you and that's a consistent way to be getting food into your body, we shouldn't be shaming people for like, don't you know you need more variety? Well, variety is secondary to getting food in our bodies. So, I'm a big fan of repetitive meals, or Preston's repeat grocery order. That's great.
It's convenient. It's very easy. And going off of that too, the even outside of the routine, which first of all I love, is the concept of making your meals almost like your hygiene or showering. Like I don't feel the need. Well, I guess maybe I do feel the need to shower after a certain period of time, but there's no point my body's like shower right now. I'm like, I should wake up and shower because that's the good thing to do. But then also with the routine repetition, putting like food in the same places or storing them in areas where you like know where things are consistently. So it's like almost like you have that Roman room memory mechanism. You can like turn your pantry into that. Like, this is where the nuts always go in my pantry, and this is where the fruits always go. This is where the vegetables are. And like that can be helpful for restocking food and like having access over time, because people can also like kind of just not know what's in their fridge and not know what's in their pantry, and then just spending too much money on food, or then also come back and be like, oh, actually didn't have any food waiting for me at home. What I haven't tried this trick, but I've heard some people say like put all your condiments and stuff that doesn't expire easily in the drawers of the fridge, because if you're impulsive and dysexecutive, things that are out of sight or out of mind, and you may forget about them. So normally vegetables and fruits go there, but they're going to be forgotten to the sands of time, then will literally become sand in your fridge. So then put your fruits in like perishables and easy access places where you'll see them quickly.
Oh yeah, I like that. 100 years ago, we were all just putting condiments like in our pantry, like mustard and
We should go
mayo.
back to that.
Even you go to old people's homes, they still have all of the hot sauce, the mustard, the mayo, the ketchup is all just like in their cabinets or their pantry.
I mean, you go to a diner and the ketchup's there on the table with you. Why does that deserve real estate in the fridge in the first
I
place?
like my ketchup
really?
cold. You guys can keep this to yourselves. I feel like
Do you want your burger cold? You just want to cool it off with some ketchup?
No, I don't know. It's more like fries. Like I like a like hot fry in cold ketchup. Okay, sue me. Whatever. This podcast is sponsored by French fries. No. I feel like the other thing that has been helpful for like me just in times where things have been like much busier, and so you just have less executive function or you're just overwhelmed, is Preston said having these similar things, knowing where they are. I also feel like taking the thing of like having it be pretty palatable, but like a banana and like a Fairlife chocolate protein shake for me in the morning is like, I'm not a person who gets super hungry for breakfast, but I will crash out a little bit if I don't like eat a real meal in the morning. And so just I feel like being able to use the tool of repetition where you don't care about it. So like I don't really care what I have for breakfast. It's more that meal is always more of a chore to me. But like cooking for dinner is like fun. And so giving people permission to be like, well, do you really care if you eat the same thing every day for breakfast, or
right?
that's
And
okay?
That would fit in really well with somebody who's trying to manage kind of their appetite while also on a stimulant. Is a lot of times, morning, afternoon is when their symptoms are covered the best and their appetite is the lowest. And then by the end of the day is when, more that novelty, that dopamine hit from having a beautiful plate of food or from hearing the sizzle in the pan or trying a new recipe. So saying I eat the same breakfast every day, or I get my lunch more really consistently because I'm not hungry and I know it feeds me and I know that I'll like it logistically works, and then kind of saving the treat of it for dinner. Another strategy, and this kind of dovetails with depression, which we might get to more, but is true for most people, care a lot more about, I find that a lot of folks that I work with care more about everybody else than they care about themselves, and can often be putting themselves last, self-deprecating, very true with ADHD. And so for people with pets, especially when they come in and say, I'll go days without eating, or sometimes I forget my meals, or I have difficulty like getting food on the table, is I'll say, do you ever forget to feed your cat? Never once has anybody ever said, yeah, then she doesn't eat either. They're always feeding the pets the whole time. So I think pets can be a big tool there for even just like habit stacking. of saying,
Mhm.
okay, well, when you put the food in your dog's food bowl, then we're going to have a bowl of cereal.
should-
We're each going to have a
I
bowl
was
of food
saying, yeah,
together.
just eat some dog food with it with
Hey,
him.
I like that can of tuna.
Start
Just get-
small.
What's the farmer's dog? Isn't that just like kind of people food that's vacuum sealed?
We eat together.
Yeah, it's like a little shared meal. That's kind of cute. Look at us.
Or
I'm a
maybe,
dog.
I mean, we're kind of laughing, but now that we're talking about it, I'm thinking, what if you and your dog bought matching food bowls and you kept yours as just people food and it went in and out of the
Mhm.
dishwasher and you had cereal wouldn't that be much more fun and much more rewarding
Mhm.
that you and your pet were enjoying a meal together at the same time
Hey.
consistently?
So we say this, but like I'll get like tuna nigiri from the grocery store, and that's how it is with my cat. Like she'll be staring at me on the edge of the table while I'm with like all of my like sushi, and I'm like, okay, you can have this one. And I just like give her a slab of fish, and then she's like eating her fish while I eat my fish, and I'm like, yeah, look at us, just two cool cats eating sushi.
Getting our teens and aminos just locked in
Yeah,
right
exactly. So I basically already do that, I guess.
You're very close. And I said before how important, access is. So I don't want people thinking that I'm saying if all you have is dog food, you should eat dog food. I mean,
now. Right.
that's probably not recommended. I do
Yeah.
remember an old episode of it was like a TLC show, like Biggest Cheapskates or Cheapest People in the World. And this woman was like saving on her grocery bill by eating cat food instead of canned tuna. And it must have been staged. I don't know that that's real. But I'm not endorsing that. So if that's what people are thinking of when they hear me say, buy a matching dog bowl, no.
Do you hear that, listeners?
We draw the line at canned tuna here on How to Be Patient.
Till season whatever.
You tolerate so much during the day. And if you're anything like me, the last thing you want to deal with when you get home is uncomfortable bedding.
I want the experience to be as luxurious and as not reminiscent of any call room, any hospital blanket that I've had to use on a 24-hour shift. And that is why we use Cozy Earth. I use Cozy Earth at least.
We use Cozy Earth. I'll correct you there. I love to throw my sheets in the dryer for 15 minutes and the cats and I cozy max after for the rest of the evening. And if you want to try it too, there's a risk-free purchase for a 100-night sleep trial. If it works out for you, you have a 10-year warranty on these. So why don't you start the new year off right? Give your home the luxury it deserves and make home the best part of your life. Head over to CozyEarth.com and use our code PATIENT for up to 20% off. And if they give you a post survey at the end, let them know that we sent you.
Give the gift of comfort that lasts beyond the holidays and carries into the coziest new year yet. I feel like a couple other strategies ADHD wise. Body doubling comes to mind, which can be harder to implement, but I think even like FaceTiming someone while you're cooking and they're doing something different, just like stacking repetitive chores and then the like dishes that can overwhelm people quickly. I think the tool of body doubling, which is when, for our listeners who may or may not know this, like is when there's another person in the room, but also you can do it virtually, and it tends to still work for people with ADHD to help them get through the chore part of it and the cleanup part of it. Because I think that's also a big issue is feeding yourself, but then the mess that comes with feeding yourself for a lot of people. And that's true for depression too, in terms of like energy management.
Just using your social network to create external accountability and redirection.
Yeah. Well, and that it just literally makes the task easier. Like, I think it's like accountability, but it's just like another person being there with you for people with ADHD does something in terms of like making the task feel better. Which
I mean,
is maybe what you
I
were
would like to
saying.
yes and that and say like
Oh,
not
Mr.
just anyone
Improv.
with ADHD. Yeah.
What?
That's an improv skill. Yes, and.
Yes, it helps you with ADHD and also helps, I think, everyone else. I think
That's true.
that social
Yeah.
one or body doubling, doing the chore with another person around, that I think applies across all mental disorders. Because I was thinking about with depression, making like a social function around food is really important because when people are detaching and isolating, like both the food and the socialization is like treatment in and of itself.
The socialization actually also does bring us back to the Mediterranean diet because that's actually a tenet of the diet is eating socially, is sitting down for meals. So that's not a micronutrient or a macronutrient. It's like a behavior that is associated with the diet. That's one of the things that they measure when they're studying it. So, yes, agree. Yes, and.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and.
Are there any things you think of in terms of nutrients for people with ADHD that you would be like, this one is emerging as maybe important to focus on? Before we talked a little bit about kind of macros, and I think that actually matters a lot for ADHD in terms of like protein, fiber, satiety,
Right.
and then dealing with appetite. But like I've seen some things on like omega-3s being pretty important, taking like fish oil supplements. Curious if you have thoughts on that from nutritional psych
Yeah,
side.
I mean, it's so probably the macros are the most important, right? Is just getting fed. Omega-3s are one of those things where they're maybe helpful if you're deficient, but not necessarily everybody needs to be taking them. So if you're somebody who just does not like fish, never eats fish, you don't cook a lot at home, maybe because of your ADHD, you're ordering out a lot, so your foods may not be containing a lot of omega-3s from like healthy cooking fats, or if it's processed food. So yeah, an omega-3 supplement. Well, I should also qualify this with what I tell my patients. Supplements should be supplemental, right? So they should be supplementing an otherwise healthy diet. People walk in and go, what supplement should I take? And I go, we haven't talked about your diet. We haven't talked about really anything yet. What would we even be supplementing? So they're all in context. So omega-3s are wise. Where I live, it's already dark outside. And
Same.
in other high latitudes, or I guess really low latitudes, just the opposite half of the year, vitamin D is important. I've actually had some folks, basically everybody gets vitamin D deficient in Minnesota in the winter here. But I've had some folks almost get like upset with me when I say, you're very vitamin D deficient. Let's start there and then talk about meds again next time. Is they start taking their vitamin D supplement and then they're mad. They're like, I feel so much better. I could have done this sooner. I didn't need to make a psychiatry appointment.
Need to see you.
Right. So vitamin D, especially dark, cold halves of the year, is smart. Another one that most people are not deficient in, but is just, I think, important to be mindful of is copper and zinc are important cofactors in dopamine synthesis. So they're kind of more trace minerals, and most people probably get enough. But if you have ADHD and you feel like you've had a hard time managing it, and you're wondering kind of what else you can look into, that's kind of like some extra credit homework, is be looking at foods that have more copper and zinc, which like pumpkin seeds, I think are pretty good for zinc for sure. Yeah.
Wait.
Why are you? You have them with you, don't you? Yeah. I was like, he's nodding too much. Okay, so to summarize a little bit for ADHD, a lot of the behavioral stuff we just talked about in terms of just like making
this is my
easier.
bag of pumpkin seeds I'm just now finishing today. It's on the repeat grocery list. White pumpkin seeds. I looked up what has a lot of zinc in it.
It's pumpkin seeds.
Exactly. I'm gonna eat one right now.
Executive function stuff, thinking about appetite, impact from stimulants, thinking about how to make cooking easier, how to add things on, maybe not intuitive eating for this group, especially when you're on a stimulant during the day. And then we mentioned vitamin D, maybe fish oil if they're not getting it in their diet, and then optimizing as needed. Maybe you're looking into it if it's in your varied diet for copper and zinc.
That's a probably good summary.
Yeah, I saw creatine has maybe some budding evidence. I think it's right now still in the like silver bullet phase where people are like, does this apply to everything? You know, I saw a study on like creatine Alzheimer's or creatine memory and general brain health. I think I saw that the kind of theory is just like how it helps with like kind of that preserved anaerobic phase of discharging ATP in your muscles. The same can kind of apply to your like glial cells, your astrocytes, supplying nutrition to your brain. That if you just have a little bit more creatine in those cells, there's a little bit more creatine kinase. There's a little bit more initial like recombination of ATP as cells fire. So it may have some benefit there.
I listened to a podcast episode recently with Front Page Fitness, who are a couple exercise physiology PhD researchers, and they like are great and debunk a lot of things. And they did a review on creatine. I'm not impressed with it in terms of this is even in just the cognitive protective stuff that I think is more well researched right now. has not a huge significance in terms of clinical things. I think it's like p-value, great, but the actual impact is like not massive. But it is definitely, Preston, you're right, going through this very much like in vogue phase where it's getting studied for everything and is kind of like creatine could have cured us all. It's
Mhm.
like, no,
Yeah, if only we had more creatine.
if only
we
everyone
could
was
have been
gonna
to
pump
Mars
in.
by now.
The other thing that I purposely didn't mention, but if we're talking about things that are in vogue and kind of TBD on, is the keto diet. So, I mean, that's also being kind of investigated for ADHD.
Yeah.
I I think, all interventions have pros and cons, risks and benefits, and keto diet like may have some benefits. And some studies show like different cognitive benefits, but we don't really yet know if that's from eliminating a bunch of processed foods. Is that from the extra protein? Is that, what is really like the component of it that's helpful? Also, it's very hard to adhere to and has risks. It has cardiac risks. It has downsides. Um, so
GI risks.
I had somebody ask me about keto this week, um, and that's kind of my spiel with it is like all treatments have pros and cons. No treatment has pros and cons. Dietary changes have pros and cons. Medications, therapies, everything has, something we have to weigh. And so something I didn't mention just because I think it's, a little bit TBD still is like keto and ADHD. So maybe we'll know more at some point and I'll change my tune, but that's not one that I necessarily recommend yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I feel like the thing with a lot of the times, from what I understand from listening to like RDs and different people talk on this, is like maybe the research will emerge, but also the like just elimination, as you were saying, of like eating more regularly because you have to plan ahead because you can't just eat anything in your environment, and that there is this reduction in like high, glycemic index foods or other processed foods, whatever you want to define that as. Um, and so people always, the biggest one I feel like right now is everyone's like, you lose weight on keto. And they not made up, sorry. That was rude of me to say. I was going to say, they said like, oh, it's because the fat, doing this and this, and then combining it with fasting makes your cells do da 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 da. And now it's just shown in the literature that's like, no, it's just you're losing weight because you have less calories in the day when you're eating that way. So
RDs are registered dietitians for our listeners that aren't
yes,
familiar.
sorry.
Yes, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other thoughts on ADHD? And I feel like we gave a good number of things for people to take home with that. I feel like we should go to depression next.
Yeah, which overlaps a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm. All comorbid. And they
Yeah.
all need to eat.
Right.
'Cause
Well,
they're all
and the tips
people.
overlap.
That's
Mhm.
true.
So, depression, ADHD being a neurodevelopmental disorder, depression being an episodic disorder most of the time, folks will say and talk about their good days and bad days, their ups and downs. And so I am probably the 1 millionth person on the internet to say that like meal planning and meal prep can be really important. So that's not like a new idea, but on the days that you're feeling motivated and that you have the energy, making a double batch and putting half in the freezer or planning I have some pantry meals that I like to make where it's just like gnocchi, pesto, and a can of veggies that all can live in my pantry until the day when the kitchen's empty or when the fridge is empty and when I just don't have the energy, right? Like that's still a meal and it's valid and I can eat that. And I don't need to overthink exactly what the nutrient content of it is because I'm just like hungry and it's at the ready. So yeah, I think planning ahead and another kind of framework that I talk with people about. Um, Again, it's kind of like the pet thing. It's kind of like most people are their own worst critics. Most people care a lot more about other people than themselves. Is don't look at meal preparation as you doing a favor for yourself. Because when you're very depressed, you're going to go, I don't care about myself. I'm a piece of crap. Why would I want why do I deserve this nice bowl of soup tomorrow? But reframe it as I'm doing this for future Brooke or future Margaret or future Preston, right? Like that it's this external other person that gets to reap the benefits. Maybe I feel like a piece of crap today and I don't deserve anything good, but Brooke a week from now does. And really making that kind of like a third person rather than identifying with it. And a lot of people find that helpful because they're doing somebody else a favor and not when it's hard to take care of themselves.
I always say like you can't pour from an empty cup. So not even like your future self being that third person, but usually literally other people. Like, you can be a better cat parent if you feed yourself. Like you gotta secure your oxygen mask before you can like help your children or your friends, the people that you already want to put forward. So like serving yourself is serving others
Mhm.
in the same way.
Also, the relax, like for people who have episodic mental or I think about this with my patients who also have chronic pain, that those who have episodic or flares, they have like good weeks, good days,
Mhm.
bad weeks, bad days,
Which may or may
especially if
not
this
correlate with when their mood is good and bad.
right,
Right?
right.
A lot of the time it does.
Like, I think especially if it's someone who's only had like one or two, like they're just now kind of struggling with depression, and I like work with a lot of young adults, so they maybe haven't experienced it or they're experiencing it after college when before they'd experienced it in high school and they were living at home, but finding ways to help them kind of live their values, but like lower how intense what they have to do to live by those values. So maybe they are someone who, when they're feeling good, they pack a really beautiful salad for lunch every day and they go running and they do all these health behaviors. And when they're depressed, they're like seeking more processed foods, comfort foods, higher calorie foods. Like, what is the compromise of like what you can offer when you're in this depressed period versus what you can offer when you're well? Because I feel like what you're saying of the like perfectionism and the being self-critical, I mean also being a like part of the depressive picture and definition, is talking openly with them about like how can we relax your standards a little bit while we're working on getting better and still have you feeling like you're living at least somewhat within them.
Right.
One of the other parts with depression is, and this can be true with executive dysfunction with ADHD, but like I think of the very slowed down depressive
Mhm.
person who like, we're helping with medications, but also part of what the treatment often is this like behavioral activation.
Right.
So if you had someone who you feel like, they're in a bad depressive episode, we get them on medication, things are getting better, and they're wanting to go, they're not feeling super motivated, but they're hoping eventually to go from maybe getting frozen food or takeout every night because of just how low energy and down they feel to if we wanted to integrate a behavioral component with this, if that was your patient and they come
Right.
in, they're depressed, they're on a med now, things are slowly starting to get better and you're trying to get some behavioral activation around food and eating in, how do you talk to people about that who don't feel motivated to do that yet?
Yeah. I mean, like sometimes we talk about the CBT triangle, cognitive behavioral therapy triangle, and how our thoughts, feelings, and actions kind of feed into each other. Or a phrase I say a lot is like, inertia is really powerful, right? Objects in motion tend to stay in motion. Objects at rest tend to stay at rest. Um, and this is better in clinic when I have like my little whiteboard, but drawing
Of
out the
course.
triangle and saying, you know, when our feelings are depressed, then our action is to stay in bed. And then our thoughts are that I'm lazy and worthless. So then we feel more depressed and it's a spiral. I'm talking about the opposite, spiraling upwards, right? So
Yeah.
maybe I feel depressed. Maybe I think that I'm a piece of crap and I'm going to make a sandwich. And I'm going to do that whether the feelings or the thoughts are in place. Because when I make a sandwich, I can take pride. I can have prideful thoughts in what I did. And, we move the CBT spiral in the other direction. So, um, even this thing is something as little as a sandwich can be a really big thing to somebody. And so we should validate that and talk about, what a good job they're doing. Um, so I think, yeah, catching cognitive distortions and trying to, you know, highlight for them what a powerful intervention they're doing by making themselves a meal. Um, and a lot of times when patients start to do better, sometimes they'll give us too much credit. They'll be like, oh, Dr. Duncan, you helped me so much. And it's like, well, you're the one taking the meds every day and you're the one like coming to your appointments and none of these things work if you don't like fuel your body. And, none of these things work if you don't take care of yourself. So you're really doing the legwork and highlighting that those small things are big things and that they're making what I'm doing more impactful. They're feeding off of each other. So behavioral activation is a big thing. Also, another big thing with cooking specifically is it's inherently a mindfulness practice because at the crux of mindfulness is being present in the moment. And I always talk with folks about like, if you're not watching the carrot when you're cutting it, you cut your finger. If you're not listening to the sizzle in the pan,
Mhm.
you're going to burn dinner. If you're not using your sense of smell, you're going to overcook the garlic and it's going to be bitter, right? Like it's one of those activities where it's actually really hard for your mind to wander. And of course, we've all done that. Our minds wander. But a meal that is prepared by you demands attention for your safety. So that it's both behavioral activation. I'm chopping the carrot. I'm frying the things. And it's a mindfulness activity where you're really in one place at one time doing one thing. And ideally tuning everything else out.
Yeah.
And it's aromatherapy too.
Mm-hmm. They studied like how the smell of garlic affects people, because I think that's the most common aroma treatment that I get in my cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought like mirepoix and
The
garlic on the
anxiolytic
stove.
effect of onions. That
Yeah.
What's the name of that reaction when onions reach a certain temperature and caramelize? I swear
Maillard.
that's like, yeah, you get that Maillard reaction. Oof. That I wish I could prescribe that actually too.
Okay, Preston, what are your short on time, low energy repeat lunches or dinners? I will give one of mine. One of mine is a Costco classic, which is the bear chicken nuggets, a can of green beans, and whatever fruit I have in my fridge. That is one of mine. Sometimes a potato, add that in there. I love a good.
Mine's like a parfait, I guess. Like that's my easy. So it's literally like I just have like one of those packets of granola, and then I have like a store-bought thing of yogurt, like one of the pre-made Greek yogurts, and
Love
then maybe
that.
I'll get like one of those like it's super easy. It's like a triple berry pack. So it's like some blackberries, some raspberries, some blueberries. So the whole thing takes like 3 seconds. You dump the yogurt, you sprinkle some granola, and then you sprinkle some fruit along the side of it. But what does it for me is that it looks pretty.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have your
It's novel and rewarding
column.
and beautiful.
Yeah, you have your column of blueberries, you got your column of granola, you got your column of strawberries, and then I take a little bit of honey and I go back and forth and drizzle on it, and I'm like, this is fine dining right now. And it took me 2 minutes. So like that's something that I've like found is easy and I can also be proud of and mindful with. Like I for some reason get obsessed with like arranging the berries to look aesthetic, and that's my mindfulness practice. Because I can get yogurt on
It's your
everywhere
little Zen
and
garden.
mess it up. Yeah, exactly.
And that's you with coffee too, Preston.
That is, yeah. Making coffee. So I have an espresso machine. I love to make like little lattes or flat whites for my friends. And that's actually probably my most common mindfulness practice. Like you have to be paying attention actively as you're steaming the milk, as you're like prepping the espresso puck, as you're pulling the shot. Like you have to be paying attention. And then you're smelling the espresso to make sure that like you didn't over or under extract it. And you have to be paying attention as you're like pouring the shot itself, trying to make like some kind of pretty piece of art. So I don't know. I feel like I like turned the things that I did habitually into like their own little like mindfulness exercises. Same actually, shaving I've been doing recently. So I used to just kind of like use one of those electric razors or whatever, but then I started trying to get one of the old fashioned straight razors. And that's like, yeah, I totally
it
screwed
didn't
it up
work.
the first time. Yeah, no, we had to correct there. But that also ended up being like a fun mindfulness practice. It's like
You have to pay
a
attention.
routine. Yeah, no, it's a routine that you can like thrive on where you're like, okay, I do my pre-shave, I do the shaving cream, I like rinse it under the hot water the same way. You do 3 tugs, switch, 3 tugs, then go around. So I don't know. I think ultimately what I'm getting at is that inertia is at the core of all this, and humans thrive on routine, and we have to find ways to inject routine into as many things as we do. And by like making some whimsy or making those routines fun, even if they're originally boring, can be that behavior activation piece, I think is my ultimate sticking point among all of my anecdotes.
For back to the what are the go-to like lazy person meals? I mean, I love a girl dinner. I love just like random snacks on a plate. It's great. And I have a few other kind of go-tos. I mentioned the pesto gnocchi because like pesto, it's green stuff. That's green. It counts. It's got olive oil in it. That's your omega-3s. Like gnocchi cooks much faster than most other pastas. And there's also potatoes in there. So like, we're catching a lot of food groups. You can boil some gnocchi, pour on some pesto, and then like canned or frozen veggies. And truly like it's a meal in one pot in less than 10 minutes. So that's like a busy weeknight or low energy meal for me. Another one, if people like more spicy or kind of Asian inspired things is zhuzhing up a thing of ramen. So instant ramen with a scoop of peanut butter and some sambal oelek. That gives it more, kind of like a spicy, sour Thai. It's kind of like a Thai peanut noodle dish. And again, like a can of frozen veggies or a can of veggies or frozen veggies. We haven't done really any chopping for either of these meals. We haven't had to usually take anything out of the fridge or the freezer because you can keep your sambal oelek in your pantry. Condiments don't have to go in the fridge. And I go through enough of it that we go through it fast enough. It doesn't need to be in the fridge. So those are two, like, are we feeling Italian? We can have pesto gnocchi in 10 minutes. Are we feeling Asian? We can have like a spicy ramen that has protein and has some fiber and has some other things. And I'm not going to sit there and go, oh, but gosh, this has salt or this came out of a can. Like, that wasn't the prompt. That wasn't the question. Let's just eat dinner.
Yeah. I will say I have a couple. I actually think these are helpful because like people who listen to our podcast, I feel like if they click on this episode, they're like, okay, I would like help dealing with this part of how mental health is impacting me, or they work in healthcare and they're like super busy and stressed. So these are actually helpful. Another one I really like is like, I will have like a bucatini, and it sounds fancy, but you take like a tin, specifically Trader Joe's, of like mussels and olive oil, and then I will actually like pan sear them and then make like a very light, like put some garlic in a pan, put some red pepper flakes, and then like a little bit of, I will have white wine. And then you just put all this together with boiled noodles and you've got like some omega-3, you've got a seafood. It's like a little spicy. It sounds more difficult. I feel like it sounds easy.
Sounds very delicious to me. I would probably add lemon, but again, if you don't like lemon, or if your viewers are like, trying to keep it as simple and streamlined as possible, it sounds very similar to a video I put up a while ago. That's like a tin of smoked oysters cooked in a skillet with, I put finely diced onions in there and chili flakes and tomato paste. And you just end up, the people who don't like fish, I often recommend just kind of cooking it down like that because it almost like dissolves. It turns into this like ragu. And smoked oysters, they don't taste like oysters. It's not like oysters on the half shell that are slimy or that kind of smell fishy. They smell like smoke. And so it's almost like, smoked oysters are really underrated for folks who don't like fish but want more fish. I'm a big fan.
Yeah. I'm trying to get into sardines. I feel like that's my like next journey. I'm not there yet.
Do you have all the merch? The sardine bags, the sardine.
No. I'm not into them yet. We're enemies currently. I'm like, how do I find a way to like this food? Preston, I also all the time, I mean, it's fall right now, so I will say chili is always like many different chilies, I feel like is a good way. And soup always warms up. Like it's if anything, it's better the next day versus like other foods where you're like, oh, this is dried out chicken breast now and not great.
And freeze is great for future Margaret.
Yeah. There's a great recipe, like a turkey chili recipe on the New York Times cooking app that I love to use. And it's really just dumping a bunch of stuff in a pot. It's like ground turkey, some of those like canned like whole tomatoes, and you just crush them up, and then just like onion, spice, another can, like a thing of beans, a thing of olives. And so I think what can be fun about like the easy like go-to meal of like a soup or a chili is that it's a single pot meal. A lot of times it's like a bunch of groceries that you can just like order off of a list and then just dump together, and then it scales really easily too. So if you want a meal prep, it's not going to be double the chopping. It's just double the cans, then double the dumping. Yeah, exactly.
I will say, with the chili being often like a dumping situation, one thing that I find helpful for my own meal planning that folks who are struggling with their mental health can kind of steal from me is planning a meal at the end of the week that uses up all the produce and veggies that you haven't gotten to. So sometimes that is a soup, like we're going to make a chili and everything that's looking a little sketchy goes in the chili, or fried rice is often that, or like goulash. I've never made a chili the same way twice. I've never made fried rice the same way twice. It's whatever we have in the fridge goes in there. Because I think a lot of people, even those who have access to and can afford fresh produce, then are afraid to buy it because they don't want it to go to waste, or it's going to make them feel more guilty and bad when there's like limp lettuce in their fridge. So like planning a night in the week where that's where all of the stragglers go. And maybe it has spinach, or maybe the spinach is gone. Maybe we throw an onion and a can of peas in there, and maybe we already used up our onion, or we have a bunch of extra carrots, or whatever it may be. Those recipes that are kind of really forgiving and can allow you the flexibility to say, like, this is where we are. This is what I'm throwing in there. Chili is a big one. Like I said, fried rice is another favorite of mine. That's not like my lazy girl meal, but it's pretty quick. Like a fried rice with a rice maker is not too intimidating, I would think.
It's actually how ratatouille was invented. It's like a peasant meal that at the end of the week or at the end of the season, when the vegetables are starting to go bad, they were like, let's just cut them up and throw them in a pot together, and it'll extend the shelf life of whatever we're working with. So it's, in a way, it's fine dining.
Yeah.
Doing this goulash at the end of the week.
I once made a jambalaya that way, and I posted it online where I was just like, oh, our jambalaya. And somebody was like, that's not jambalaya. There's never corn in jambalaya.
Yeah.
And I was like, I guess it's not then. I don't know.
It's not the true jambalaya.
And you're like,
We're
okay.
using things up. Yeah. It's
They
hard
know
making
true
food
Scotsmen
content on the
do.
internet. People always have things to
Yeah.
say.
Oh, I believe that.
It's hard making.
believe
Yeah,
that.
the bean soup theory is very true for you, I imagine.
Preston, will you explain bean soup? The
Oh,
bean
yeah,
soup
so
for our non-chronically online listeners.
Yeah, so for anyone who's not
Who has a life.
aware, bean soup theory it's really the concept that whataboutism has become so rampant that you can post about anything and somehow it will create like conflict online. You just kind of have to let it. You have to shrug it off, essentially. So it came from this person who was like posting a video that was like, here's a great bean soup recipe.
It's like 9
the
different
top
types
comment
of
is,
beans.
what about people who are allergic to beans? And
What
she's
can I
like,
sell
well,
the
then
beans for?
then just don't eat it. Yeah, exactly. And like, okay, well, like I don't have access to hot water and I can't boil like this bean soup. Then it's like, okay, like,
Okay.
I'm sorry that. Yeah, no, it's essentially all of those things where like people don't acknowledge that, like, hey, maybe this thing might exist and be good for other people, and also it may not apply to my situation, and like both of those are okay.
I was going to add that I wonder how much of this stems from the fact that like social media used to be where you would see a thumbnail or a title that you liked and you would click on it, versus now being fed things on a continuous feed. Because if I don't like beans, I'm probably not going to click on the bean soup recipe. I'm going to go find what I want, and the suggestions are going to be curated to what I want. Versus now, it's just like this came up and I was shown it, so the algorithm must know. So therefore, this creator
Deserves
who I've
my
never met
opinion.
must have meant for me to see this. And how could they not know that I don't eat beans?
You imagine how much of a hater you'd have to be going through YouTube, and every time you saw a bean soup video, you're like, I'm actually going to seek this out, click on it, and then tell them that I can't eat beans. God, it's so easy now. Now I can just shit all over stuff that comes to me.
Well, then like also I feel like the content people make, it's like get to the point. If you're not bean souping them, you're just like, okay, stop saying caveats. And I can fall into this, but like stop saying caveats. Like just I can do the caveats for you in my mind. Just say the point you're gonna make. What if I don't like
you
beans?
can caveat until you literally die trying to
and someone will still be mad. They'll be like, well, she didn't say this before she died.
Like, actually I'm allergic to caveats, so this whole video.
We are going to take a quick break. We're going to do one more section on anxiety and maybe a little bit about sensory stuff related to food, and then we will wrap things up. So we'll be right back. You can catch the next part of this on Patreon.
It's patreon.com/happypatientpod.
Where can people, I know we started the episode, but just so people know, where can they find you online? If you want to list your socials here so they can go get more ideas. And I think you do a great job of like also, it's the same information, but giving different viewpoints on it and different ideas for how to apply it, which is, I think, the biggest thing. So where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'm on TikTok and Instagram at Cook with Dr. Brooke. I'm also on YouTube, but sometimes I forget that I'm on YouTube. So sometimes the things have sometimes there's a lag. But yeah, it's Dr. Dr. So at Cook with Dr. Brooke. I do I joke that there's a Cook with Brooke out there. And so I found her before I finished med school, and I was like, well, now I have to graduate so I can get a good handle. So it was motivating to become a doctor so I could have like the catchy name.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
shout out Cook with Brooke, regular, non-doctor. Maybe you're a doctor, but
Well, I think there's a Cook with Brooke on TikTok that's like actually a bigger influencer. And when I was in med school, there's like a little girl on YouTube. She's like 8 and she's adorable. Well, now she's probably a grown up. But I was like, I can't compete with that. Like she's like cooking like her peanut butter jelly sandwich. And I was like, she beat me to the punch.
Thanks again for being here. As we kind of move on the outro, I want to turn and talk to the audience for a second. So how do you guys like the show? I know we've been kind of on this nutrition saga recently, and I think that the theory was fun and loose and different, and it was nice to kind of turn around and get into some more kind of concrete, actionable things that I think I'll actually employ myself. One thing that Margaret and I have been thinking about is doing some live recipe challenges and or like doing things along with the Patreon where we cook together. I know you've probably seen some of
We are going to have done that by now, so we're not going to say that.
Yeah, this is us from the future.
Catch up the Patreon where we've done this already. So
yeah.
For
but
this episode.
I've been wanting to make a baking video now and then, or do my own copy content, so we can integrate that into our things, and I'll drag Margaret along. If you have any ideas for things that you'd like us to do, anything nutrition and beyond, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Human Content Pods, or you can find us on howtobepatientpod.com. You can always find me at It's Presro or Margaret at PatArt Everyday. We're on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube alike. Shout out to everyone who's leaving all the kind feedback. I got one comment that really stuck out to me about looking into coping skills with medical school. So it seems like y'all really appreciate the advice we have about just kind of functioning in your daily life. But some people are also really interested in the how to exist as a med student. So that might be a topic we'll be looking into in the future. Thanks again for listening. We're your hosts, Preston Roche and Margaret Duncan. Our executive producers are me, Preston Roche, Margaret Duncan, Will Flannery, Kristen Flannery, Aaron Corney, Rob Goldman, and Shanti Brooke. Our editor and engineer is Jason Portizo. Our music is by Omer Benz-V. To learn more about our program disclaimer and ethics policy, submission verification, licensing terms, and our HIPAA release terms, go to howtobepatientpod.com or reach out us at howtobepatient@human-content.com with any questions or concerns. How to Be Patient is a human content production. Thank you for watching. If you want to see more of us, or if you want to see, this is Lilac, she's my cat. She's going to be waving her hand at one of the floating boxes, which will lead to more episodes. Lilac, point to the other episodes. Lilac doesn't know what the internet is, but I swear they're there. They probably exist for real. But in the meantime, I'm just going to pet Lilac, and then I'm going to go dance in the background.